So the reason that I took SPY puts, so a lot of people are actually like super bullish. They thought that the market was going to go higher because they only were looking at the short-term stuff. They were only looking at the smaller time frame, looking at the break of the major 159 level. But if you kind of pan out really quickly, just even on the 5-minute, if you just pan out, just a little bit of a zoom, what do you see? You see a clear as day double top, right? So that's already a bearish consensus right there alone. And as soon as we started getting rejected right here, that's pretty much just confirming my bias that yes, this is indeed a double top starting to form. And then you have to understand, Apple is basically leading everything. Apple is holding the entire market up basically on its back. If Apple flushes, what do you think the market's going to do? Do you think it's going to bounce? No, no, no. When Apple flushes, the main relative strength play that's been holding up relatively pretty good throughout the entire week, despite all the sell-offs, when that flushes, so will SPY and QQQ because it holds the highest weight inside of those ETFs, right? So that's kind of confluence one on why I decided to be short. And then I also got a secondary confluence was Microsoft. So what do you see on Microsoft right here? This is a triple top, right? This is also a bearish pattern, right? So when everyone was trying to go long here and the market makers are pretty much trying to get your euphoria, trying to get these people, the retail traders to, in a sense, buy calls here at the top on the breakout, thinking 279 is going to break. And then they ended up just getting rejected and hardcore, short it. So this is why it's very important to kind of scroll out and look at the bigger time frame. So clear as day, triple top, right? So that's already two bearish themes right there. So when both of the major leaders of the ETF, because Apple and Microsoft hold the highest weight in both the SPY and the QQQ, right? So then if you look at SPY, just pretty much during the exact same time frame. So I ended up calling it right here at the tippity top, right during the time where Apple and Microsoft are starting to reject, right? So I already got two different bearish confluences, basically confirming my thesis that yes, I believe that SPY can drop, and Microsoft and Apple are kind of confirming that for me. And also you have to realize what kind of just happened here. Let me make this a little bit smaller for you guys. One sec. So you kind of have to see what kind of happened here. We did just have a big ol' 7-point drive pretty much without really any major kind of fall. So you have to realize stocks don't just go straight on up, right? They go in breaths. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, right? There's always going to be some sort of a pullback. And this is what you kind of just saw. You saw the pullback, right? And now also we're kind of starting to bear flag here. So that we could very well potentially see another leg down. But that's just for a different story. But then you kind of understood why I was taking puts here, because I was looking at different stocks that are inside of my general thesis. Because if I'm trading SPY or if I'm trading QQQ, you need to be aware of what the overall leaders are doing, right? So the three major leaders for both the SPY and the QQQ are Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon. If all three of those are bearish, 99% of the chance SPY and QQQ will also be bearish. So this is why it's very, very, very important to always have pretty much not just kind of tunnel vision, only looking at SPY or only looking at QQQ, right? Because if you're only looking at that, and just for kind of an example, say, oh, I'm super bullish on SPY, but you have no idea what the hell Apple are doing, or Microsoft's doing, or QQQ, or any of this other shit's doing, then you can get faked out very, very quickly. Same exact thing if you're trading Apple, right? If you're trading Apple, you need to understand what SPY and QQQ are doing. It's like literally they're kind of just go hand in hand, right? So never just only tunnel vision on one specific stock. You want to understand how the general broader term is doing, similar to sympathy plays, right? So what do I mean by that? So a sympathy play is basically stocks in a specific sector, right? So like semiconductors, for example, usually if say AMD, let's just do AMD. If AMD has very good earnings, usually Not all the time, but usually that's a very good sympathy play for other semiconductors, such as NVIDIA, right? So if AMD had great earnings, then there's a high possibility that NVIDIA will also possibly, rally, right? So that you can kind of just play the sympathy plays. You always want to understand how the overall broader market is doing, not just kind of tunnel visioning only on one specific stock. Very, very important to do that. So before we go into the actual level 2 section of the presentation, do you guys have any questions, or why do you think I took puts here, or anything you want to chat about before we continue forward? So the triple top is considered a triple top even though it's slightly higher. Yes, absolutely. So this is a common misconception. The stock market is not going to give you a picture perfect 100% pattern every single time. This is still considered a triple top. It might not look, presentation picture perfect book wise, but this is still considered a triple top. Same exact mentality with Apple. Just because these aren't right exactly towards each other, this is still considered a double top, right? So you're not gonna, I'm not saying you won't be able to, but the likelihood of you getting like picture perfect patterns every single time is not very likely. You just have to kind of, in a sense, pivot, right? Because like, yeah, sure, this doesn't necessarily 100% look like a triple top, but it is a triple top because it broke down, right? It was confirmed. It broke down through the trend line, right? So same thing here. This broke down as well. So this was then confirmed that this was therefore an actual double top. So that's kind of a very common misconception, that if it's not like a picture perfect pattern, that it's not going to work out. You can get some sloppy ass patterns. Like you can get some sloppy head and shoulders. You can get some sloppy cup and handles, like all these different patterns, and they can still work out. Like they're not going to be, picture perfect every time, but these can definitely work out. So kind of just keep that in the back of your mind. So another question is, how do you watch Apple and Microsoft and Amazon at the same time? So usually what I personally do, since I have 3 different monitors, I have the luxury of, I'm able to kind of look at multiple things. If you don't have that luxury, I would recommend just putting a simple watch list over here. Maybe just like put all whatever you're trading that specific day. You could just say, okay, I'm trading QQQ. Let me put the top 3, stocks inside that ETF. So this way you can kind of just like, just briefly go over like, okay, is it bullish? Is it bearish? Like, how is it doing? Or you could just, simply just like switch to it just really quickly before you get into a position, right? Like I'm not saying like, keep your eyeballs glued on these other stocks, but like if you try to get into a position like a SPY or QQQ, you want to have a general idea of what the hell they're doing before you get into the position. How do you know the triple top is going to keep going to a rising wedge? Also a great question. So it can. I'm not saying it can't at all. It very well could. If we had a volume spike right here, it very well could. No pattern is 100%. Period. No pattern is 100%. But the fact that we started to break down in the way that we did confirms that this is instead not a rising wedge. It's not bullish. It's actually bearish, because we got 3 rejections, and our final rejection was at this really key level of 279. 279 is a weekly level, so we got a nice rejection here, thus confirming an actual triple top. And if you look here, this is also another weekly level. I don't have it drawn out, but I just know historically that 159.50 is also a very heavy level for Apple.